And I'm going to welcome everybody to the Mysteries and Magic of Life and Death teleconference series. Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Peticolas, filmmaker, educator, grief transformation specialist, and your host tonight. We are here to look at the practical and profound sides of living with dying. And tonight's guest is Leslene Della-Madre. She is an author, poet, shamama, the feminine form of shaman, and teacher of women's shamanic mysteries for over 25 years. And we are welcoming you for an evening of focus on life, death, and regeneration. Leslene is a midwife of the spirit, originally trained as a birth midwife and drawn into death midwifery by necessity, and now midwife of the spirit. She is the founder of Winged Women Return in Sebastopol, a center for shamanic study for women. And from her training in spiritual midwifery on the farm in Tennessee, where she lived for 11 years, she applies the same knowledge to midwifing the dying and teaches nationally and internationally. She's also the founding co-mother of the highly successful Women's Spirit Retreat for the Center of Spiritual Living, now in its 21st year. So welcome, Leslene, and I'm going to turn that entry tone off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for joining us. And before we begin, I'm going to put people on mute. Does anybody have any problems? Is anybody having trouble accessing the screen on the website? How's everybody doing?
This is Grace, and I'm still not able to get the...
You're still not able to get the website?
I had to download it. Now I have to...
You have to open it, I think. And I think it's named something... Do you remember what that... It was called freescreensharing.bmg.
Correct.
Do you have something like that?
I'll open it on my website. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, open it.
Yeah, I just need to undo a lot of things. Sorry, I don't want to hold you up.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Leslene, I'm going to mute everybody and then I will unmute you. Let's see, that was *5. Uh-oh. Leslene, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, good. I've got the right person. Okay, so so my first question is, briefly, tell us your story about how you got from being a birth midwife to a death midwife, and how does shamanic work fit in with all of that?
Well, I lived and worked and studied on the farm in Tennessee, and we developed, a whole school and way of doing natural childbirth, and so I spent a long time there and just training in that and having my own babies there. And a colleague of mine wrote in a book once that giving birth for a woman naturally is a peak shamanic experience, because she's bringing the soul in from one world through her body into another. So I think that for me, I witnessed that in the whole process of studying birth and giving birth and helping other women in that process. And then when I left the farm, I was taking care of my father, who was ill, and I just began to use the same teachings that I learned with birth midwifery in helping him to die, and it's mostly about presence, really. I mean, it's just I learned a lot about just being present and showing up and not having an agenda and listening and watching and paying attention to the energy, which is really what I think shamanism is about, is paying attention to energy. And I learned that the birth energy and the death energy are the same.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, it was just being with him and his process. I learned that if I could be without fear and could just be present to the process, it helped him not be in fear. And he was able to tell me things like the night before he died that he was going to die. He told me that, and my father suffered from his stories in my book, so I'll try and be brief. But he suffered from severe cardiopulmonary issues, and so he was often a gray color. But the night before he died, he was very, very pink, and he looked like a newborn baby.
Oh, wow.
And I was just really present with the mystery of all of that. And he was talking to me about people that he was seeing walking around and asking me questions about the people that he was seeing, and all these people were dead. So yeah, and
so
I
you
knew
really
some
felt
of
like
them.
you were sort of on the edge of another world, didn't you?
Yes, and I did feel like this was about midwifery. On this end,
Wow.
So
and once he
Mm-hmm.
passed, you didn't feel like there was any disturbance in his energy. You feel like he did a really good birth into the next life. Is that right?
I did, and I wasn't there right when he passed. He really wanted to do that alone, and I think he knew that it would be very hard for me to just contain my grief at that point in time. I've learned a lot about that since then, but when I got there, it was an hour maybe later, and the room was just filled with light and a beautiful energy, and it was undeniable. It was really undeniable.
Wow. Well, I'm very excited to see these slides that you have. So I'm going to, pray to the techno goddess, and I'm going to click switch presenter, and we hope that this is going to work.
Switching a presenter. Okay, you are nominated, okay? Yes.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Okay,
I can see your desktop.
You can see, okay. Let's see, this is interesting.
So you want to get PowerPoint up?
I do. I have it up.
Oh, you do?
Can you see it?
I can. There you go.
Okay. So, in this journey of working with midwifing death and dying and just being with people, one of the things that I've really come to appreciate is really honoring ancestors and realizing that many of us in Euro-Western culture don't really have the kind of indigenous, deep connection to ancestors that many people in other parts of the world have. And that is where the shamanic connection really is, in my opinion, because it's so deeply connected to the universe, to processes of life and death and all those that have gone before and those yet to come. So this slideshow is really kind of an introduction and a journey into ancestors that are mostly focused in old Europe. However, it is It is a reflection of the same wisdom that is global times. So in other words, it's cross-cultural. So
that's a very beautiful image. Who did the drawing of that woman tree? And the looks like there's a.
I think her name.
We lost her. She's gone.
Oh, I brought her back. She's on my. You don't see her.
I do now.
Okay. I'm not sure.
And who drew her?
I don't know. Her name is at the bottom.
Oh, I see.
She was on a card that someone gave me. Willow.
Oh, yeah, very
Isn't it gorgeous, huh?
Yes,
yeah.
Very beautiful. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. So the main theme of goddess symbolism is the mystery of birth and death, renewal of life, not only human, but all life on earth, and indeed in the whole cosmos. Maria Gimbutas, the language of the goddess, and Maria Gimbutas was an absolute brilliant archaeologist, linguist, and she literally, with her own hands, unearthed the goddess cultures of old Europe in the early 1980s. Unbeknownst to her, she didn't know that's what she was going to find. She had been a Bronze Age expert and was a very highly esteemed scholar in that field, and she got ill, and she decided she was going to find out what was going on before the Bronze Age. So she revolutionized the field of archaeology, much to the dismay of the very androcentric views, and there's still a lot of backlash against her right now. She's not alive anymore, but her work is incredible. So this book, The Language of the Goddess, is one of her encyclopedic works. So in this earlier mythology, the earth out of which all creatures have been born is not dust, but alive, as the goddess creator herself. And that was Joseph Campbell, who wrote the introduction to The Language of the Goddess, and said had he met Maria before he wrote The Power of Myth, it would have changed a lot of what he had to say.
Wow.
So though his works and her works are archived together in Southern California now. So this is sort of the introduction to this journey we're going to take. In the beginning was chaos, actually considered a deity, the numinous deity who gave birth to us. At the core of every major religion is a divine mother, the dark mother. She is not void. She is pregnant possibility who gives birth from herself and receives all unto herself in divine ebb and flow. Our ancestors have left us messages that we have not listened to for over 5,000 years. It is time that we do.
So this is part of what you're talking about, the ancestors. It's not just people on the other side, but rather the archaeological records of our ancestors.
Yes.
I got
it. And even beyond that, like for instance, the Australian Aborigines, they refer to ancestors as cosmic processes. Like gravity. So our understanding of ancestors, I feel we need to really remember our indigenous Aboriginal understanding of what ancestors and who ancestors really are. And to me, that's a shamanic world because it brings us into connection. And I think one of the problems with modern culture and why there's so much fear around death and dying is because we're not very well connected to the natural world. So, and they have left, our ancestors have left globally so many messages for us that we have not been paying attention to. So,
are you thinking of one in particular?
Well, I'm just thinking, yes. I'm thinking, for instance, the connection to a mother consciousness that brings forth life. And when you think about when you observe, not think, when you observe how women are treated around the world, there's a Native American saying that says, a people is not conquered until the hearts of the women are on the ground. And when you look around the world, you see how many women's hearts are on the ground.
Wow.
So, yeah. And as we get into this, you'll see more of what this ancestral stream of wisdom is really about. And it's about the feminine. And we have completely almost erased her from our, our worship, our appreciation, our cognition, our consciousness. And so we're suffering because of it.
It's interesting. I, of course, read The Sword and the Blade. I mean, is that what it's called?
The chalice.
The chalice and the blade. Yeah, the sword and the blade. Yeah, right. The chalice and the blade. And she talks about how many words were changed to have a patriarchal meaning that were originally, I think even man came from a word that had to do with being mother, the word man.
Yes, man, yes. Man originally meant woman, which means womb, from Veer is actually, this is old Indo-European language. Veer is what man was, and Veer is related to war. So it's very strange.
How they co-opted all the words, all the lexicon.
All the words.
Fascinating.
There is a book called Breaking the Patriarchal Code, and she goes through 10,000 words and shows how words and meanings got changed. It's an amazing book. Took her 30 years to write it, and she had death threats on her life.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm talking about a deeply embedded reality that we've all been taught that is not true. It's not in alignment with who we are. So I figure if we don't know where we come from, how can we appreciate where we're going when we leave our bodies?
Right.
We can't. And so there's so much fear and denial and, all the things that people can observe and probably have experienced with loved ones dying. And there are, interspersed stories about peaceful and beautiful deaths too, of course, but this is sort of a general kind of wake-up call as I see it. So the Dark Mother, here's a few images of the Dark Mother. Dark, of course, the dark has been demonized, and we think of the Dark Mother or dark as scary, but when you really think about it, the dark gives the place for the light to shine, Without the dark, the light has no place to come from. So it's reclaiming this essence of dark. And my colleague has written a book called The Dark Mother, and she talks about the African origins of godmothers, and it's an amazing book. But here are some images of the Dark Mother that are probably familiar to some of us. And the interesting thing about the Black Madonna is that these Black Madonnas are found all along the migration trails from the African diaspora up into Europe and the Middle East, and they are black. They are Black Madonnas, and the church will say, "Oh, they're black because there was a fire and they got smoke on them or something." Ridiculous, ridiculous things. But there are so many amazingly beautiful Black Madonnas. So they're African. And they reflect the black cosmos, the which scientists are calling the dark matter and dark energy and black holes and dark flow and all of that. But there are other astrophysicists who are referring to it as the world of plasma, which is, you can't see it, but it is not. It's not. Well, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But it's really reclaiming the dark and the beauty of it and what that really is. So I think Osset, the mother of the perfect black, that's an amazing title for her, the mother of the perfect black, you know. So and our ancestors, you know, not just European in this case, but African and around the world, they had a deep appreciation of the dark. And you can see it in you can see even like in places I'm thinking of Sicily, or Sardinia and Italy, and places where you see a lot of older women. They're all dressed in black. Have you traveled and seen that? That is a remnant of the Dark Mother, and my friend who wrote the book, the Dark Mother, she writes all about that. So, anyway, I'm just on this resurrecting this so that we can appreciate where we come from and where we're going, and how to connect this with our death practices. So here we have the internal Dark Mother, which is the womb. And our ancestors, they knew all this, you know, and they celebrated it and they honored it. And from as far back as, way far back, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they honored it and forward, you know. So the Dark Mother is found at the very core of existence, reflected in the mathematics of the sacred geometry of nature, as seen in the fractal of the Mandelbrot set, and I call it the womb fractal of creation. And if you aren't familiar with fractal geometry, it's absolutely astonishing. And at the core of the mathematical equations and plottings, computer plottings, is this fractal appearance, and it makes itself over and over and over as the numbers are plotted and I don't know all that stuff, but how they use the numbers and how they plot them, this space is recreated over and over. So it is a self-replicating energy that produces self-similarity, and it's everywhere in nature. This is what the sacred geometry of nature is. And so to understand it a little more, the image on the right is a fractal womb. A woman gives birth. If she has a daughter, she gives birth, if she chooses, and that daughter gives birth, and that daughter gives birth. And so that is kind of how a person can understand the nature of fractal geometry. And it all comes through the female. And then it just, the sacred geometry of all of that is so absolutely exquisite when you get into the Vesica Pisces and the flower of life and the seed of life and the egg of life, and all those geometric configurations come out of the feminine. So it's macro and it's micro.
Right.
Okay. So, prehistory, revelations of archaeomythology. So Maria Gimbutas field archaeomythology, because as she was digging in the soil up these objects, these sacred objects, she felt that the mythos of the people was held in them, and she could feel it. She had many experiences just from holding them, and she didn't know what they were. So they were giving her visions of what they were, and so she because she was a trained Bronze Age expert in weaponry, so she was a very good choice to be the person to do this, because when she picked up many of these objects, they spoke to her.
Oh, that is so interesting.
Yeah, and she's a scientist, and she stepped way out of the androcentric realm of science to create this field because of her experience from the earth. and it completely changed her and her work.
How interesting. So the ancestors spoke directly to her.
Yes, they did. And she heard them, and she risked everything. Yes, she risked everything, her career, to put it out there in the world. So the Latin word matrix originally meant womb, from the same Indo-European root that gives mother, mater, meter, matter, mat, the Egyptian goddess Mat, and other equivalents. Matrix also encompasses a sense of kinship systems based on mother right that are matrilineal, matrilocal, and egalitarian. The social sense of matrix is a life support network within the maternal kindreds, which are cooperative and communal. So the whole sense of mother and womb is what early cultures they came out of that, and they honored that, and they lived according to those sensibilities. And in many of these cultures, there's no evidence of war.
Yeah, I read about that.
Yeah. So.
And that they actually lasted for many centuries.
Oh yeah, for millennia. Well, and they were lasting longer. We've lived longer in peace than we have in war as a species, but we don't teach that to our children. We need to, because we need to show the last 5,000 more as a blip rather than what we teach them. Because basically what we teach them is about war and destruction and killing and more war and more and conquering and pillaging and raping, and I mean it's just. And that's just actually a very short time span in our
existence
species.
as the species.
Yes. And we need to teach them about these values from these earlier cultures because they lasted a lot longer. So.
Right.
In the Paleolithic, so roughly 30,000 years ago, but there are divisions of the Paleolithic and Middle and Lower and all of that. But I'm not really presenting this as a scholarly thing. I don't really want it to be that. What I'm interested in is I'm inviting all of you to really let yourself be impressed by the imagery and really think of ancestral wisdom as you look at these images. So these are womb caves, basically, because early people lived in caves. And the one on the upper right, Holy Fells, I was just there in September, and you can see the date on it. And there was, a mother goddess figure that was found in this cave, like in about 2007. And you'll see an image of her. But she's one of the very oldest that have been found there. So that, the people there's this continuous thread of deep appreciation of source as female from birth to death. And it's just this thread that's carried on for thousands of years all around the world. So in Chauvet, France, on the left, on the bottom, you might, if you have a chance to see Cave of Forgotten Dreams, there's a documentary out. This cave is featured in there, and in there are, their narration, as I listened to it, was pre-androcentric. However, there are images in this cave of the sacred vulva on the cave walls, and they did recognize that. So they were able to speak to it. So, and these are some images of the Paleolithic Great Mother. So I use the word matrika sometimes because it means, motherment of the mother. I do like that word for that. So the one upper left, the holy cells, is the one from the cave I was just talking about. That's the one that they just found in about 2007. And you can see the dates on these. The one in the middle, I invite you to really, really check out the date on her. She's not even our species. She's not Homo sapiens.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
And so there's this continued consciousness, you know, from species to other species. That's pretty extraordinary.
Yes.
And the one in the bottom left, the Matrika, I included that little insert there, the egg of life, because it's a sacred geometric pattern, and I believe that many of our ancestors really were tuned in to sacred geometry in the way that they were, because this figure has exactly the same amount of circles as represented in the egg of life, and she's called, she's referred to as having egg shapes. So when I saw her and saw that, I just made that connection. And the one in the center, the La Salle, you can see she's pointing to her belly. She's holding a horn, and on that horn are 13 notches, which is the amount of time that it takes the moon to do her lunar cycle in a year, because we're on a solar calendar. These people were on a lunar calendar, and it also marks menstruation.
Right.
So it became a timekeeping, and they, govern themselves by the moon and by the cycle that women go through in life with bleeding. And then her hand on her belly, I mean, it sort of speaks for itself. We come from here. And then the horn also, I'm not going to go into it too much here, but that also has sacred geometric connections. So then even down to the number 13. So. And then the one on the right, the Doni Vestanice, you can't see it too well, but from her eyes there are engraved streams, probably tears, coming down from her eyes that go all the way down her breasts. And it's like a connection with the fluids of life, with the seeing, the eyes of the goddess, the nurturing breaths, the water, all of that connection, life connection. And maybe she's expressing grief too with her tears. Don't really know. And we have a Neolithic Great Mother, which is roughly 10,000 years ago, up to 10,000 years ago, and there's a lot of information about the bird and the snake figurines, goddess figures, cross-cultural, because they represented transformation and regeneration. Birds, water birds in particular, because they integrate water. They can be in water, they can be in air, they can be on land. They integrate those elements. And then snakes shed their skins, and the way they move, they were representative of life force. And then we have, well-known Kundalini, the coiled serpent at the base of the spine. Comes from all of that. And the snake Matrika from Crete, the feminist scholarship says, of course, that she's sitting in a full lotus or a partial lotus, and that women were the inventors of yoga, because in a lot of literature about yoga, they'll say that they don't know the origins. But
and she definitely is sitting in that lotus position, isn't she?
Yes, she is. Yeah. So these are just some images of the Neolithic Great Mother and her daughters, her priestesses, they're her servants, and the Nile River goddess is pre-dynastic Egypt. So pre-dynastic Egypt was definitely female-oriented. And there's a lot about Egypt that I think we don't really know.
We don't talk about, or we haven't.
We don't talk about, right, that's
yeah.
it. That's a better way to say it. We don't talk about it. So we'll move along here. So death and regeneration. The goddess of death and regeneration is also the bird goddess, the nocturnal aspect of the life giver. Names are interchangeable with womb, egg, and uterus symbolism. And that's from Maria. And the use of red ochre throughout time, for millennia really, this red trail of menstrual blood, the blood of life, reveals a thread of continuity in the imaginary realm of early humanity regarding life and death. So there's great respect for this blood of life. Red ochre is this ubiquitous presence cross-culturally around the world, and menstrual blood was the first blood, we can say, that was on the altar of our ancestors, and it's given without sacrifice. So, very sacred substance. That is invoked by painting the matrikas with red ochre, the blood of earth. Many ancient peoples also painted the bones of their dead with this sign of life-bearing blood. The matrikas themselves were commonly buried with the dead as signs of rebirth. So they were buried with these mother goddess images put in the graves with them.
And that's the matrika is over there on the right-hand side of the screen, and that was some sort of little sculpture object. Is that correct?
Yes.
What was it made of? Was it stone?
I don't know what that particular one was made of, but it could very well have been from mammoth ivory, mammoth tusk, because of the date on it.
Right.
But the sensibility, even Neanderthal buried their loved ones in the fetal position and covered them with red ochre. So, again,
I just want to alert you to the time, because in about 6 minutes I do want to start allowing people to ask questions, but we can also continue on if we don't have questions. So just kind of give you an idea of how much time we have.
Okay. So I do honor the ancestress at the bottom there. I often have issues about just, the bones, showing bones of ancestors or having them dug up and all of that. But I feel like she's showing us what the sacredness of the connection of the blood of life and returning to that, And then the Hypogeum is the largest underground temple in the world in Malta, and it is a large womb tomb, basically. It's an incredible place. So these are some symbols of regeneration and renewal from both the Paleolithic and Neolithic, and the focus is on the pubic triangle, and it's often shown as a numinous force field, rendered with outlines, hatch marks, swirls, and especially dot patterns. But this is cultural. This is Paleolithic, Neolithic. What I encourage you to take with you is just the ubiquity of the presence of the female and her place in the cosmos, and how the ancestors knew that.
Wonderful.
And then we see womb tombs. These is more Neolithic. The Hypogeum, you can see on the right underground, it was carved with antler picks. And it took, maybe over a series of 200 or 300 years.
Which one is this, the Hypogeum?
On the right. It's a fabulous womb tomb. You go in there and it just feels so incredibly sacred. And the sound in there, you can sing, and it was carved that way for singing, for chanting, so that the dead were sung to. And this figure of the woman above there, she was found there, and she's called the sleeping goddess, but I think she's incubating. Her legs look like eggs, and I think she was incubating the dead into new life, dreaming them, being the mother, protecting them. It's just very beautiful concepts, you know. And you can see these other large mega, you know, I don't know if they're called megalithic. Maybe they are graves. They're huge. West Kent at Long Barrow, Newgrange, and then the rock-cut painted tomb in Sardinia. It looks just like a womb, and the swirls on the back wall are the spirals are the cross-cultural symbol for life, eternal life. Same thing on the right.
Let me ask a question. You know, you're talking about this in Sardinia, this painted tomb. Was one person buried in there, or were many people buried in there?
I'm not sure about this one. That's a good question. I don't know about this one. I've seen them where they were big enough for a number of people to be buried in there. But I didn't visit this one, so I don't really know about that one. But in West Kennet and Newgrange, many people. And in the Hypogeum, many people over a period of several hundred years, because when they found it in the 1930s, they estimated that there were remains of about 7,000 people in the Hypogeum. So it was communal burial. So it was
kind of like a communal burial or their own cemetery or...
Yeah. Together in community.
How interesting.
So here we have environment as a reflection of regeneration. You can just look at these images, where people lived, where they worshipped, what they built. The Silbury Hill in England is the largest human-made mound structure in Europe. It's huge. And again, they used antler picks and things. A shelter with a womb altar. The temple in Malta is shaped like a large woman, so when you enter, you are entering through what's called her yoni gate, and when you come out, you're rebirthed through the yoni gate. And it's aligned with the sun, so that the solstices and equinox of the sun goes right through the yonic gateway and lights up the back altar.
Wow.
This is Çatalhöyük. This is a very interesting settlement in Turkey. Notably, on the left middle picture is a birthing room. It's a reconstruction, but it's a birthing room. You can see all the cows' heads there, and above the door is a vulva-shaped arch with a figure that's reflected below in the textile. That's the figure. That's what it looks like. It's a birth presence.
We're not quite getting the image yet. It's
you're not
sort of stuck in between.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
I don't know what's going on. Oh, here we go. All right. So what are we looking at here?
Are you getting Çatalhöyük now? Do you see Çatalhöyük at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. It's trying to shift again. Did you hit again?
No.
Oh no. Now we're back to the shelters, the womb tomb.
Well, maybe it'll take a second for you to come forward, because let's see.
So
go forward one, and then
here we
I'll go back.
Okay, we're now good.
Now you're on Çatalhöyük?
Yes. Whoops. Now we're over listening to the ancestors bringing forth the divine mother wisdom, womb wisdom.
Okay, well,
here
it'll
we go.
click back.
No, we're back at Çatalhöyük.
Çatalhöyük. Okay. What I would like to just point out here is that this was a vulture. It was a vulture cult. In their processes of death and dying, they allowed excarnation burials, so the vultures would pick the bones, and the vultures painted on the walls were in red, so it was the color of life. And so there's two rooms here, and the middle one is the vulture room, the vulture shrine. And you can see the head of the cow with the horns, and it looks like they were decorating her face like around like the cervix or the vulva, and they put the skull of the dead person in front to represent rebirth. And these two shrines were next door to each other. So you had the birth shrine next door to the vulture death shrine. And you can see the insert of the uterus above, so you can see the similarities. And so I'm trying to go quickly here. So
how many more slides do you have?
I think there's maybe 6.
Because it's past quarter after, so I would like to maybe open up the lines for people who might have questions. You can continue to talk, but I'm going to open up the questions. And if people have questions, they should put their hand up by touching on their keypad *6. So if anybody has questions, they can put up their hands, and meanwhile, Leslene will keep on going, and I'll keep my eyes open for any questions. Okay, go on ahead. Oh, wait a minute, we have a question. Hold on. Go ahead. Hello?
Let's see if I'm the one who's... Hello, are you hearing?
The one. Yes.
Good. My first question is, I would so love to be able to see this, and for some reason my pop-up blocker didn't allow me to see the visual part of the show. Will she be giving this in any other place where I might be able to see this?
Leslene? Hello?
Hello.
Leslene? Are you going to be giving this? Wait a minute. Where is Leslene? She disappeared. Hello, Leslene? Leslene, if you're muted, hit *6. We have some. We're going to get back to that, but also I'm going to try and see if she can give me the slideshow so that I can accompany the talk, because we're recording the talk, so that people can also look at the slides while they're listening to the talk.
All right.
Hello?
There's one other thing that I wanted to ask her, but I don't know whether now is the time or not.
Go ahead and ask, and I don't know where Leslene is. Leslene, are you there?
Oh, that's too bad.
Well, go on and ask the question.
My question is this. I'm a student of Tibetan Buddhism, and I am studying the works of Nguma, who is referred to as the Lady of Illusion. And it's so incredible because she is shown as a dark deity.
Ah, how interesting.
Right.
And what are some of her attributes?
She's, as any deity, she represents the essence of being. So, and Nguma was the female founder of the tantric practice lineage of the Shangpa Kagyu tradition. So it's pretty amazing being a woman that she did what she did, and that she also is a dark represented or manifests as a dark deity. Really interests me.
Is that Leslene?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Somehow you got mute, but I've got you back off mute.
Oh, okay, good. Yes. I am aware of her, and this is why I was saying this is cross-cultural, because it's that deep presence of the Dark Mother that we can trace from just about every well-known religion.
I thank you so much, because it gives me an added dimension for my work, my studying of her.
Oh, so excellent.
Thank you.
Leslene, she also wanted to know if you're going to be doing any presentations. I know
doing
you did
this again.
I wasn't able to see the images.
I heard that. And my suggestion would be for you to go to my website and just join my email list, and then I can let you know when I'm going to do this again.
All right.
And I'm hoping what you will do for me, Leslene, is maybe create a PDF version of your slideshow that I can accompany because I think you can do that. And if you do it in color, I think it's fine, because people will just access it online. They won't print
Well, you know what I can do? What I can do is I can send this out just as a PowerPoint attachment. to emails. And you can get the whole PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay.
And download
I'm just not sure that everybody has PowerPoint. That's all. That's why I'm thinking of a PDF. But sure.
Well,
send me the PowerPoint, and then I'll make both available to people. Okay. Was there any other questions that you had?
No. Just thank you to both of you. It's such wonderful work that both of you are doing. Very meaningful.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So. She's mute, and you can continue on, Leslene, until we get another caller.
I'm just at the point now where I'm talking about midwifing death, and really what that amounts to, from my view, is mothering the dying and bringing the values of mothering to the death, and also to the family. And this is in my book, so just what that means and how to do that, and my focus is on helping healing take place for any unfinished business with the family, with people who are willing to do that, because the dying of a person is a whole family. It involves the whole family. So
it's the whole constellation.
Yes. And bringing beauty however we can to the bedside of the person who's dying, to, just creating a beautiful field, whether it's in the hospital or at home. And
what are some of the ways that people can do that?
Well, for instance, here, Michelle created her own beauty field before she died. She was completely involved in her project, designed her coffin, she painted it, she decided what she wanted in it. Her theme was Egyptian-style boat, and she orchestrated her entire funeral and created, so her vision of beauty and how she wanted to leave this world, she did it, which is quite amazing.
That is.
Yeah.
But it also can be a whole family process, that the whole family can be involved in it.
Yes.
And then it really can be very fun and very spiritual and involve people in it so that it's not so scary.
Exactly. And so that's one way. You can do it yourself.
Right.
Another way, with your family involved, like you were saying. This story, Florence, her whole family was involved, and they brought in all the flowers. They had her outside after she died, and inside she was just in a room that was very, very peaceful and quiet, and pictures from her life were around her, and people would go in and just be with her. And so, I think people are very creative, and I think that people can come up with ideas about creating a beauty field. I think just whatever inspires you.
Right. And it's also it's a good way to channel the energy around losing somebody, is to channel it in a creative way.
Mm-hmm. And participate together. And
yes.
With Florence, we were able to work with her family. They had some unhealed issues, and we sat in circle before she died, and she fully participated in that. And people spoke their truth, and she did too. And we did it in a sacred way and in a safe way so that she felt like she could go peacefully after that. I think that's really important because there's a lot of unhealed stuff going on.
Yes,
but everybody was willing.
That's great. Sometimes people are actually held back from dying because stuff isn't finished.
Exactly, and it's just like a birth. When I used to work with birthing women, it was like, okay, we would encourage the women to speak their truth because we knew that the energy would hold back the birth. So, yeah.
Wow.
So, and her granddaughter participated. She sat on the coffin lid and was painting on it and drawing on it. And what an amazing experience for a 12-year-old girl,
Yes. It's so nice to reclaim the process back into your own hands instead of having it like outsourced to these large corporations.
Exactly. I mean, these are just examples of how to create beauty. They're, I know some people can't see them, but there's also ways of
lots of flowers and fruits and food and bowls.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was at home, and, you can see the feet of different people sitting around in a circle, and it was just very earthy, very real, and very beautiful.
Great.
And in this one, you can see the candles that are honoring the directions. There's jars honoring the directions.
Oh, yes, I see that. There's candles in the jars.
And then this is Monica, who did the art for my book. And this was 3 hours after her passing. And she wanted to see the book, and I went to go be with her in England. And it wasn't done yet. I showed her a galley, but on the morning of the day that she died, the publisher had sent the first copy to her, and it arrived in the morning of the day that she died.
Oh, my goodness. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
So she did a lot of she did all the illustrations in your book?
Yeah, and most of them. Yeah, most of them is her art. Yeah.
She looks very beautiful.
Yes. And it's interesting with her because she had a lot of unresolved issues within herself, but she spent time just working on that, very deeply internally, and she was in a safe place where she could do that, and wasn't like there wasn't a bunch of intervention, so she could just do that, and she looks, she looked peaceful.
Yes.
So this is, I invite us all to, think about where we're returning.
Yes.
That we don't have to be afraid.
Right. And we can make that process of returning more creative.
Yes, more creative. But I think people have to really learn how to, deal with their own fear before they can really, sit with someone who's dying, because it will tend to trigger a bunch of stuff. If you're sitting with someone who's dying and you haven't faced stuff in yourself, people can get pretty triggered.
Right, because it brings a lot of stuff up.
Exactly.
Or it can, yes. So then part of the, I guess, the instructions for being a good midwife of death is to deal with your stuff before you do it.
Yes, midwife yourself.
Midwife yourself.
Yes, deal with your stuff. Yes. Be committed to your own healing and to being a present being. And
but I would also add that it's important to show up for deaths, because they may also be the very process that helps to move you forward into your own self-midwifery,
Yes,
losing your fear.
I think that's true. Yes, I think that's true, too. I think that it definitely can do that, and if you show up for it, if you just, can be accepting of the process.
I have another questioner.
Okay.
And this is Lawrence Grace. Well,
okay.
That's what it's... Hello.
Thank you so much for this call. This is wonderful. And I really enjoy you talking about our deep ancestral connection to the Dark Earth. And this dovetails so beautifully into some other courses I'm taking on sacred sexuality and the serpent home in the caves and all of it. So thank you so much for that, and I look forward to being able to see the photos at some point.
You couldn't see them either, huh?
Oh.
Sorry? No, it didn't work. And I'm not techy to find my way around it. So, but did have the opportunity actually to be in one of those caves. It was right across the way from Silbury. I don't remember the name of it. I went on a journey last year in England, and it was amazing to be in there. And I sort of the beginning of maybe realizing just really what that is. So what I want to say is you started to answer it actually about midwifing ourselves through our own death. And that really intrigues me because I'm at the threshold of that. I mean, I don't have an illness or any of that, but my journey is towards death midwifery, coming from being as a hospice nurse. And so I've dropped that because my journey is going to take me somewhere else where I can come back into serving, and where it seems to be leading is for me to midwife myself through. So you're bringing this up right at the end of the call, so I'm going to get I'll go there and I'll go to your website, but that's really something I'd like to learn more about.
Yes, well, please contact me. We can chat about it, and I am developing, I guess it's a curriculum. I never know. I don't. It's hard to teach all this kind of stuff for me because it's not an intellectual process. That's what shamanism is. It's not intellectual. It's otherworldly, non-ordinary reality type stuff. So I'm just working with how to make offerings around this that, are more earth-based. So, but please contact me and we can dialogue.
I will.
And meanwhile, I will try and I will get the audio and do everything I can do to get the slides and pictures. And you're going to have to use your intuition to know when to switch from one page to the next. But you'll figure it out.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Okay. So does anyone else have any questions out there? And was there anything else that you wanted to say? And let me see if there was anything that I wanted to ask you about.
Oh.
No, I think you kind of covered all of this.
Okay.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you've had really good questions, so they're very inspiring for me.
So thank you so much for sharing this really deep, wonderful wisdom and your beautiful images. And all of you that weren't able to see the images tonight, thank you so much for making the effort to try and do this. And we will work on this. We will, particularly me, try and work on a way to enable people to also have visuals on phone calls as opposed to just the sound.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were able to do it. You and I were able to do it beforehand, so I know it's, it's possible.
I think there's a little bit of a problem with them having to download the whatever it is, the thing that launches the website, and that it doesn't automatically jump. It doesn't automatically open up. So,
well, okay. Well, I will send you the PowerPoint. I mean, I think, and
do that.
You can, yes, and then you can send it to. You can send it to anybody you want to send it to, and if they can download it, that's fabulous. If some people will be able to download it. Right.
But I'm also thinking that I'm going to see what it looks like if I do a JPEG. Not JPEG, a PDF file.
A PDF.
I mean, it's going to be a little tricky because of the, the aspect ratio, the, landscape. But I think that it might be easier because you have to send all the images with your PowerPoint, I think. Anyway,
well, I do, but there's a way to do it, and I've done it with the women in Europe, and I just send them my PowerPoint, and they download it.
Great.
And they each download it, and there has not been a problem.
Okay, well, we'll try it. Okay, well, thank you, everybody out there, for joining us and being adventurous and checking this out.
Thank you.
we will be back here again December 13th for Thomas Pinkson, who is a shaman and also worked for the Center for Attitudinal Healing in Marin, and has worked with young people who died young. And he also does stuff with honoring the elders. So
yes.
we're all trying to move forward and
we are
different way of handling death and life.
Yeah.
So have a great rest of the evening, great weekend, and a great Thanksgiving celebration.
And thank you, Michelle, for putting this all together.
You're so welcome, and thank you for putting together just a fabulous slideshow.
You're welcome.
So I will bid everyone adieu. Have a great evening, and until next time.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye
good
now.
night.
Good night.